Senate Steve Hauck in studio. Now, the governor yesterday made an executive order. Now, this is what happens when these guys go in and they. I almost feel like the governor's driving down the road. It's cold out. He looks out and he sees a person that's homeless, and it's cold out. And the governor says, "I've got an idea. I'm going to demand that if it gets cold, we're going to bring these people in." Right? I just feel like he just has a whim. This is all on a whim.
I have to think that at least in some part has to do with the feud with de Blasio and the homeless, because that's really where it's kind of seems to have the past year or so kind of taken having some footing there with the, I don't know if it's a dispute. I mean, obviously New York City, and they've admitted they have an issue with homeless people. So
sure,
and
but here's the okay. So the mandate now, and it begins today, right?
Well, it's an executive order.
Okay,
it's not a law, so that's kind of where the. And obviously I'm not an attorney, so that's where, where's your mandate is, because essentially it's an unfunded mandate. It's saying you have to do this, but there's no money to support it. So,
right. Well, you talk about that.
You
talk about that, the money part of this, but beyond the money part, let's talk about the legalities here.
Sure.
You now have, like it or not, a person who's living out on the street, homeless, many of them, I hate to say this, but through one reason or another, have chosen to be there. It's not always somebody who is. I mean, I've gone to try to help somebody. Sometimes they don't want the help. If somebody doesn't want to come in, can you arrest them and force them to come in out of the cold?
Well, I think that's where the real question comes, and understand that nobody wants people living on the street.
Right.
Police officers are the ones that have to deal with people who live on the street more than anybody.
Yeah.
In the cold and all different times of the year and different times of the day and night. So police officers certainly want to help people on the street, and we do on a regular basis. But there's a difference between helping someone that's asking for help and then essentially forcing someone into a shelter that necessarily, like you said, maybe doesn't want to for one reason or the other. And
for whatever reason that is.
Right. And the order basically says that you will, if somebody comes knocking on the door of the police station or knocking on the door of the shelter and says, I need a place to stay, turning them away, it certainly shouldn't be the thing to do. But
shouldn't even be an option.
Going out into the corners and the alleys and the bus shelters and
picking
pulling
them up
people off and making them go somewhere they necessarily maybe don't want to go. I can't tell you over my years how many people have for weeks and months and days slept in the lobby of the police station on cold nights. It happened. It's happened probably long before I was there, and probably will happen long afterwards. But you're talking about going out and taking someone, and then it has to. Okay, so as police officers, we have to look at, if we go and do that. Let's say we find somebody and they're it's cold outside, like a night like last night, and they don't want to go. Now what happens? What if it ends up in a confrontation, a physical confrontation between the officer and the person? And somebody gets hurt, or an officer has to use force. Now what's happened is you've forced somebody against their rights to go somewhere they haven't committed a crime. So I think it brings a lot of questions, and I think we're looking for some direction from where we generally get it from the state, from attorneys, from the national, the either national or state organization of chiefs of police. I think there's going to, and it came on quick. It goes in effect today. We found out about it last week. So
if someone is of danger to themselves, they can be arrested.
Well, that's yes. However, the interpretation of what a danger to yourself is, and I'll phrase it to you this way: if someone were to say be diagnosed with terminal cancer, or maybe just diagnosed with cancer, and they go to the doctor, and doctor says you need to follow this set of treatments, and you can survive or you can live for years. And they say it's against my religion to do that, and I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to let it take its course, and if I die, I die. Is that a danger? Is that somebody who should be mentally committed?
We've seen cases where this has happened.
Is that somebody who should be mentally committed to a hospital?
Probably not.
Of course not.
Even if it's not for a religious reason.
Right.
They just don't want to. Right. They don't want to put themselves through it. Absolutely. I agree 100%. So if we take someone that makes a conscious decision to not live in a home and to be quote, homeless.
I do not want to come with you.
What authority do you have as police or as anybody, as an arm of the government, essentially, to as long as they're not trespassing on someone's property, to force them to do that? This danger to themselves, in quotes, is is a real slippery sort of situation. Failing to act on something doesn't necessarily make you a danger to yourself.
Right.
And this is just even so bizarre in so many ways because how would you identify someone who's homeless? Like, you wouldn't necessarily know that from looking at someone. So let's say we'll say, I don't know, any city, right? It's 1:30 in the morning and someone's walking down the road. Well, maybe they're leaving a bar and they just don't dress well, or maybe they have ratty clothes. Like, how do you actually determine that this person doesn't have a place to go?
It puts you in a position where you would then have to figure out, which ones do we go after? Is there a guy that's walking, or is it the guy that's got a box pulled over? Now, clearly, he's probably planning on sleeping the night there. But again, you're placed in these positions where you guys have to make judgment calls,
right?
And stuff that didn't exist before. And I am assuming the governor's intent is
I don't think there was any. I don't think there was any ill intent. I think no. I think it was. I think it was a nugget of an idea, and I think it was, hey, this is something we should be doing to help people. And there's a difference between outreach and mandating,
right?
I don't think there was anything malicious in the intent there,
right?
And we're fortunate in Utica. I don't think we have a huge homeless issue. We do have. It's a city, so you're always going to have people that are either in between residences or for whatever reason have ended up on the street for a short period of time. But we don't have a lot of long-term homeless
some of our
people.
Legendary people. Street people. There's some legendaries.
Absolutely.
There's an Elvis. There's a cowboy. There's a.
Sure.
Are these guys homeless, or do they have a place to go? Do you know? I mean,
I think what it is,
for instance, cowboy.
I think they are fairly nomadic. However, you do get where it's for periods they might be homeless. So it's a couple of days here, a couple of days there. Mm-hmm. We're fortunate in the county and in Utica that we do have a very good social service sort of circle of people that really do work together and help people that need it. So it's not like there's not services out there. And I don't want to say that anybody that's homeless chooses to be homeless, right? Because I don't, maybe there are some people that choose to be homeless, but I think for the most part, there is help out there if people are in that situation.
How do the police agencies get notified? Because our sister station in Binghamton is saying that some of the law enforcement authorities out that way don't know about this executive order.
We've heard about it in the news. So the order is out for everybody to see. I went out and read the order yesterday online. It's out there for everybody to see. So it's not a lengthy order.
Yeah, but you were looking for it though, right?
I was looking for it. But the one thing I will tell you, it's supposed to be, I'm assuming, a notification through DCJS, which typically that's how we get our information. I will tell you that the order says it uses 32 degrees. Obviously, that's freezing, so that uses it. But that includes wind chill. So if you get a night that's 20, that's 35, but there's a 10-degree wind chill.
Wow.
So my question would be is how many nights last year were we below that 32 degrees, including wind chill? And I bet you it's not
the entire month of February, by the way.
I guess what I don't understand, too, is what, take them to a cell?
No, you can't do that. So the question is now you have to take them to a shelter.
And I think your point here is very clear, is that it's unclear as to what you're supposed to do. How do you pay for these services? What is the plan? Where should you take them? I mean, it seems like there's an order, but without any this is one of these unfunded, another mandate that without any description or advice, or how do you handle it?
And then what if you get resistance? That's the big question. It's the difference between, if a police officer came across somebody and they said, hey, listen, I don't have a place to stay tonight. It's really cold. Let me give you a hand. Let me find some place. The police officer will find a place for that person.
Yeah.
They will absolutely find a place. They're not going to leave them out in the cold. The question comes is, if you get resistance, then what?
Right. What do you do next?
And I think there's maybe an assumption on some people's part that nobody would resist help if they're freezing cold.
Yeah.
That's just not the case. There are people that don't want to conform to
especially
what
to the
you
police.
tell them to
in some
conform
cases,
to.
they don't want the police telling them.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's I've come across it myself, so I know that it's true.
Yeah.
That no, I'm comfortable where I am. Okay.
Listen to me. One last question. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Have you watched Netflix's Making a Murderer?
I haven't, and
you gotta watch it.
I hear this, but I read a little bit about it, and I see that the sheriff in the town that it is, without understanding, I haven't seen it, so I can't form an opinion, is saying that it was not shot in sequence. So it's giving the impression that
I would watch it, because a lot of what you're going to watch is, I'm most interested in the interrogation. I want you to watch the interrogation and the 16-year-old that's sent to life in prison. I want you to watch that and tell me what you think. It's worth watching. It's on Netflix.
Okay.
We'll talk more about it.
I will.
But, hold tight here. Listen, cold one. It's 1 degree above zero, but we are going to warm up. Full forecast is coming up here.